you ever thought about going into space, Richard?
I'd love to go into space. I think there could be nothing nicer. So if you're building a spacecraft, I'd love to come with you on it.
Welcome to witnesses. You're clear to unstrap. Welcome to space.
To all you kids down there, I was once a child with a dream, looking up to the stars. Now I'm an adult in a spaceship with lots of other wonderful adults looking down to our beautiful, beautiful Earth. To the next generation of dreamers, if we can do this, just imagine what you can do.
All right, everybody, look out the window. Don't miss Apogee.
Oh my God.
Be quiet.
Woo! Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh, this is unbelievable. This is too unbelievable.
Need motivation?
Watch a top 10 with Believe Nation.
Top 10, I got a top 10. Got my motivation high for my top 10. Gotta learn from the wise women and men. All my life, like 9 for my top 10, top 10, 9. This one's for my top 10.
Hey, it's Carmichael, and I make these videos because chances are you are the most ambitious person in your circle, but you know you're capable of more, and you get that push by surrounding yourself with the best. So today, let's learn from one of the best, Richard Branson, and my take on his top 10 rules for success. Enjoy. Rule number 2, solve a problem.
There are so many problems in this world, and trying to prioritize, which problems to solve and which you just feel you don't have the energy for or the resources for is a really tough one, which is why we're trying to get, every single business in this room, even if you're a really small business. I love this kid of whatever it was, 8, coming up to me and pitching me earlier in the corridor, and giving me one of his products.
You're gonna have trouble.
He shouldn't give away the products. He must sell them. Anyway,
you're gonna have trouble getting out of here now that someone knows that you were pitched in the corridor.
But I think that if every single person in this room can adopt at least one problem, and if it's just trying to find a roof over the person you keep walking by who's sleeping in the street every day, going to your office, something, but just a problem in this world. I think, every single person in this room will feel, that much better for it, in 50 years' time when they've looked back on their life and their careers. And obviously, as businesses get bigger, you can adopt bigger and bigger and bigger problems, sure. And you can use your entrepreneurial skills, your resources, your teams to take on some of the really big problems of this world. And I think we cannot let government try to sort the problems of the world out. They haven't got the entrepreneurial skills generally to do so. And it's great fun. I mean, we have something called Audacious Ideas Gathering on Necker every year, where we get some of the more successful people together, and we get throughout the year with TED, we get maybe 300 organizations to pitch, and then we choose 10 of the most important things in the world to try to resolve. And then we go out to try to resolve them every year. It could be a particular kind of blindness in Africa. It could be, how do we sort out methane leaks around the world? And, can we use satellites to spot them and then alert the companies to these methane leaks, and so on. And so, so as your businesses get more successful, you become more entrepreneurially aware as to how to look at situations in this world. Then you get into a position where you can actually start tackling some of the bigger issues.
Rule number 3, tell your story.
First of all, I think everybody should write a book. I think every single person on this earth has great stories to tell, which they can share with their children and their grandchildren. And it's a pity that everybody's life is not captured. And the stories your parents taught you when you were young, your friendships, everything, I think, are worth capturing. I mean, I've led, I've been lucky enough to have a very full-on, I think, quite interesting life, and therefore, I think sharing my stories with others, hopefully people can learn something from them. Losing my virginity sold millions of copies, and I've met a lot of people who said it affected their lives. They've maybe dropped everything, started their own business. They've done very well as a result, and I hope finding my virginity will have the same sort of effect on people's lives, and that they will take a few bits from it and learn from it. I'm a storyteller. I love telling stories. I think that's the best way of getting messages across.
Rule number 4, get it right.
I don't necessarily think of them as business principles. I think the word, I think the word business, it becomes the business. But what you're doing is you're painting a picture. You're trying to create something to make a difference to other people's lives. You have a blank canvas, and you're filling in every little bit of that canvas to get every single little detail right. And if that canvas, sings out at you at the end, and it's a beautiful picture, your business is going to be successful. If bits of the canvas are not quite right, your business may fail. So if you set up to change people's lives, you've got to get every single little detail right. You've got to make sure that the people that you're working with, 100% believe in what you're trying to do, and you've got to make sure that what you're trying to do is worthwhile spending your time on. And at the end of the day, you want to be sure that that the people's lives you've affected, you've really you've affected them and benefited them. And if you get all that right, hopefully you'll be able to pay the bills at the end of the year.
Also, if you want to have more self-confidence and self-belief, the science says it can take up to 254 days of consecutive action for the habit to stick. That's what I want for you. So I've designed a custom free program where I'm going to send you an unlisted video for the next 254 days to shift your confidence and belief forward. The link to join is in the description below.
Most of the best entrepreneurial ideas come out of frustration.
There's my 2.5-year-old son sitting on the floor in a bunch of clothes, and there's a note. Can't handle it anymore, better off with you, good luck, I'm gone.
There are just times when something is important enough, you believe in it enough, that you do it in spite of the fear.
Rule number 5, just do it.
I've always had the philosophy that, screw it, just do it is a lot more fun than not screwing it and not doing it. And sometimes it's got me into a lot of trouble, and sometimes, more often than not, it's been fantastic. And so, I suppose one of my greatest fear in life is saying no to something and then regretting it. So I have said yes a lot, and in the case of the ballooning adventures, nearly cost us my life, but it helped put Virgin on the map on a global basis, and helped get the brand established. And And it was actually great fun when it was going well, and it was actually terrifying when it wasn't. It was the first time that 5 people had actually tried to cross the Atlantic. 5 people had died. So it was an attempt to try to do it differently than the others had done it, and that was to fly in the jet stream at 35,000 feet, where you've got very strong winds, to be above the bad weather. And you know, we were the first, and then foolishly we decided to do the Pacific, and a lot of exciting things went wrong on the way. But we missed Los Angeles, I think, by 2,500 miles, which is what we were aiming for, and ended up in the Arctic. But they were great adventures.
Rule number 6: look after your team.
It's really looking after your people in a real, genuine sense.
Sure.
So if I take the Virgin Group headquarters in London, and we do this in a number of companies that we own 100% of. So we say to our staff, if you want flexible working, that's fine. If you want to work from home, that's fine. If you want to work from home, Fridays and Mondays, that's fine. If you want to go off for 2 months sabbatical, you'll get paid. That's fine. Obviously we want people to get to do a productive job, but by treating people in an adult way, you get adult behavior back, and I think treating your people as you would treat your brothers and sisters. Some of you may be, need to,
some brothers and sisters.
But people who get on well with their brothers and sisters, I mean, or the way you treat your children, it should. The phrase "our business is a family" is so misused, but it should genuinely be a family. And if somebody is depressed or down, people should be told go home for a couple of days, take some time off. It's just being a human company. And I think that because of that, I remember when that first second-hand 747 took off 35 years ago at Virgin Atlantic. We were about to have the party of a lifetime on board that plane, but the spirit of the staff was just fantastic. And I remember thinking, if the airline survives 20 years, will the spirit still be as good? And it's 35 years now, and the spirit is honestly as good. And I think that's because we make sure that our staff have the tools to do a good job.
Rule number 7: be great with people.
I think, a good leader is a bit like, being a good father, really, or a good mother. I think what you do at home and what you do at work should be almost one and the same. So if you're a good father, you look for the best in your kids. You praise your kids. You love your kids. And a good leader is exactly the same. You've got to lavish praise on the people that you're working with. You've got to be a good listener. Make sure that you're listening all the time. You're absorbing what you learn from the people who you're working with. I just hate when I see leaders jumping down people's throats or lording it over people, or not listening and hearing their own voices all the time, and it's so counterproductive. And so I think the traditional sort of stereotype of the sort of Dallas, if anybody can remember that TV series, sort of leader that treads all over people to get to the top, is the absolute opposite of what one needs in leaders today. Trump, I suspect, is the absolute opposite of what one needs in a leader today. But fortunately, that's the exception to the rule. Most modern day leaders are great with people, and they bring out the best in their people, and therefore they get a really loyal group of people around them. And to ask somebody to leave a company, it should be so rare. I mean, generally speaking, you can, if you're talking about a company as a real family, you find another position for them within the company that suits their role better than the one that maybe they're not working out in. And this whole sort of slightly more American approach of firing people too readily is, I think, very wrong.
Rule number 8, protect the downside.
We had a successful record company, but we had one airline, 747 for Virgin Atlantic, and we were just trying to think of unique ways of putting this tiny little airline on the map. And this balloonist said he thought he could build a balloon to do the job, and so initially it was something we embarked on to see if we could get Virgin on the map. It obviously then became much more important than that, and a great personal adventure. I think the parallels one can draw from in business is that the most important thing when you start a business is thinking about protecting the downside. How can you avoid the business going bust? What will you do if it does go bust? Are you going to lose your home or not lose your home? As an adventurer, obviously the downside is losing your life, and you've got to do everything you can to avoid that. And then if you do lose your life, at least you've done everything you can not to have done.
For sure.
And of course, you'll kick yourself.
Rule number 9, pay attention to the little details.
If you're on there are some pretty crappy airlines out there. If you're on one of those airlines that if somebody wants kosher food, and the staff have to say to the passenger, "I'm sorry, they didn't put it on board today." Or if they want macrobiotic food and they say the staff didn't put it on board today. After they've said that a few times, they're going to start getting grumpy and unwelcoming, and they haven't been given the tools to do a good job. So it's the little details that matter. If I'm on a Virgin plane, I will have a notebook in my pocket. I will get out and talk to all the customers. I'll talk to all the staff. I'll write things down, lots of ideas, and then I'll make sure that when I get back, most likely the next day, I will tick them off. Not so long ago, I was on the plane, and somebody said all the salt peppers, and the salt and pepper pots are getting stolen because the guests love them so much. They were little windmills. And so I rang up our accountant actually rang me up and said, "You've got to get rid of them. We're losing a fortune." Instead of getting rid of them, what we did was we printed underneath them, "Pinch from Virgin Atlantic," and it became one of the best advertising things that we had. So.
And rule number 10, the last one before some very special bonus clips, is have fun.
In addition to humans who rather enjoy Necker Island, I suspect we have more species here than almost any other island on the planet. We're looking forward to today to show you our animals. Anyway, let's go and meet Verman, and we'll give the lemurs their breakfast. These are the red ruffed lemurs. There's only about 200 left in the world.
It's Roxy and Riley here. This one here, my daughter, her name is Rian, so we call her Rian.
It's a real pleasure just to have them here. I mean, we bring literally, I think, 1,000 or so kids a year come to see the schools, come over and thoroughly enjoy them. But the conservation reason for doing it is simply to make sure that if the species of lemur dies out in Madagascar, as has happened with 50 other species, that the species doesn't die out forever, and that it carries on. You know, that's very important. For most species that are in peril, there should be a few in captivity. Make sure the surroundings are absolutely beautiful for them, then you can be assured of the species' future. We'd love to just let them run wild on the island, but because we want to breed them so that the red-ruffed lemur remains a red-ruffed lemur, we don't create a new species of lemur. We put these sort of nets over big areas, and the lovely thing is you just don't see the nets, so it's as if they're wild, and we've given them lots of space which they wouldn't get in zoos, and that's why they're breeding so well. Human beings should never, ever, ever let a species disappear from this earth. All of us have just got a pledge that we'll do everything we can to make sure no species that is on earth disappears forever.
Now I've got a really special bonus clip that I think you're going to enjoy. But before that, it's time for the question of the day. I want to know, what was your single biggest takeaway from this video and your plan of action for the next week? The science says that when you just watch a video, you get motivated, you get inspired, you have a 35% chance of following through on your goals. 35%! That's not enough! That's not enough just to get motivated. Believe Nation, we're here, you're here. Today matters, you're an action taker. When you commit to a plan of action of when and how you're going to follow through, when you write it down, you have a 91% chance of following through. And when you commit publicly to somebody else, it jumps to 95% chance. From 30-something% to 95% chance of you following through. Believe Nation, we need to make this happen. So question of the day, your single biggest takeaway from this video and your plan of action specific for the next week. Put it down in the comments below, and I'm going to show on screen sometime next week to celebrate you.
You need to be human. You need to, you need to be willing to cry on occasions. I mean, when our spaceship went down, I met, talk about it in the book, met the 700 engineers, and we all cried together. We all had a big hug together, and then we picked ourselves up, and we moved on to create BSS Unity, our new spaceship, which will hopefully be going up in a few months' time. People shouldn't be afraid of being human beings, and with all the vulnerabilities that human beings have.
One time when you were doing hot air ballooning, you weren't sure whether you would survive.
With the ballooning adventures, I was doing something that that nobody had done before. I was trying to fly across the Atlantic or the Pacific or go around the world in a balloon. I was flying at 40,000 feet in the jet stream, with one other person, Per Lindstrand, and the technology was completely unproven. We were the test pilots.
That was more dangerous.
Things could go wrong, and they did go wrong.
But you set a number of Guinness World Records for that. But in hindsight, do you have any regrets about taking those risks on the hot air balloon?
It's interesting. My son and daughter now are setting themselves big adventures every year, dragging their dad along on some of them. And I think as a family we feel, live life to its full, and you can die in a road accident, you can die on just a normal bike ride, and quite often when you're actually completely focused on an adventure, it's less likely in some way that you're going to die in an adventure, because you're ready and sharp and know how to deal with it.
What advice would you give someone who's wondering, like, how do I find my passion, and how do I pull on these threads, and where are they going to lead to? Help us understand how you got started and how they should think about it.
Well, I think, most people listening to this show know what their passion is, and it could be a hobby, it could be, they could love reading, they could love playing tennis, they'll have passions. And if you have a passion, it makes sense to spend a lot of your life involved in that passion. And quite often you can turn your passion into a business. You can see that maybe there's some aspect of your passion that people are not doing that well, and you can say, screw it, I could do it better. And I think if you spend your life with your eyes open, looking for things that frustrate you, looking for gaps in the market, that's all the business is. It's fulfilling that, filling in a gap and doing it better than it's been done by anybody else. People who don't have closed minds will most likely find those opportunities. Now, I suspect there will be 100 people who will have come up with that idea before you, but those 100 people, won't have had the courage just to go and do something about it. So, so it's those few people who just say, right, I'm going to give it a go, that often end up, being successful. We've set up 3 airlines: Virgin Australia, Virgin America, and Virgin Atlantic, and they've all been very successful. And they've been successful. I think. Most businesses are successful because of the people, but the people only excel if you give them the tools to do a great job, and if they feel loved. Sure. And so I think what was critical in Virgin Atlantic was that every single little detail was right. So we were the first airline to introduce seat-back videos, and 5 years before British Airways. And kids who travelled on Virgin would not let their parents travel on any other airline because they wanted seat-back videos. And we had stand-up bars for upper-class passengers, and I'm sure lots of romances started at our upper-class bars. And we're not the kind of airline that banged on lavatory doors either. So anyway, we were a fun airline.
If you're a business leader, somebody's watching this and wants to be Richard Branson or Sir Richard Branson, what is the key? Surrounding yourself with great people, learning to delegate early on, not trying to do everything yourself. Making sure you've got the kind of people that are praising the team around them, not criticizing the people, having people who are willing to really innovate, be bold, and create something which everybody who works for the company can be really proud of. My dyslexia really helped me become a really good delegator, and I think that's been one of my great strengths. So I've had to find brilliant people around me over the last 50 years in all the different ventures we've done, and be willing to give them a lot of freedom to do good things and freedom to make mistakes, and by and large it's worked, and that's freed me up to worry about
the next Hyperloop one.
Well, the next projects, but also just to look after oneself, and spend time with one's family, and be ready to troubleshoot when something goes wrong. So not to get bogged down by the minutiae. And I think the best bit of advice I can give any entrepreneur is, find somebody better than yourself. Give them the freedom to, step into your shoes, and then, clear the decks yourself, and all those things that you were doing, hand over to them, and then you'll find very quickly, the desk will be full up with new ideas, which you can then hand over again, and you can keep doing that, and then you can become, a serial philanthropist as well as a serial entrepreneur. I was interested as a sort of young 14, 15-year-old about what was going on around the world, and I was inquisitive, and the Vietnamese War was raging, and it seemed to me, as it seemed to a lot of young people, a very unjust war, as most wars actually turn out to be. And and I, like a lot of other people, wanted to campaign to try to stop it. There was no young person's magazine at the time, and quite strange because I'm dyslexic that I should feel that I can. Who's dyslexic in this room? all the best people in the world are dyslexic. Sorry to the rest of you, but anyway. So being dyslexic, thinking that I could be an editor of a magazine, but anyway, I thought I could give it a shot, and so I decided to leave school and start a magazine a campaigning magazine to try to reform education and try to tackle issues like things like the Vietnamese War and the Biafran War and other wars that were going on at the time. I never thought I was becoming an entrepreneur. I don't think the word entrepreneur actually existed 50 years ago. In Britain, all businesses were run by governments, really. British Gas, right. British Coal, British Telecom, British Airways, so the word entrepreneur didn't really exist. But in starting this magazine, I had to make sure it survived. I didn't have any money, so I had to worry about printing and paper manufacturing and distribution and selling it, and that started taking up quite a lot of time. And the word survival was very important, because in those days you couldn't raise money to start your businesses. You had to sort of try to
start them,
fund them from people wanting to buy advertising or buying copies of your magazine. And so I learned the art of being an entrepreneur by in the jungle trying to survive. And the magazine became my education, and it was a lot of fun, and one thing led on to another.
Competition is good for everybody, and having a bigger competitor with a fat belly to prod makes it a lot more fun than if you just suddenly had a monopoly in a whole new industry. It makes you much more sleek of foot than I think if you were the only player in town. The only reason we would go into a new sector is if we felt it was being badly run by other people. So the reason we went into trains was the government were running trains. British Rail was dilapidated trains, a miserable service, and we just felt we could go in, we could get fantastic new rail stock, we could motivate the staff, and we could make a big difference. And so we took over the busiest line in Britain, the West Coast Main Line, and we've gone from 8 million passengers to nearly 40 million passengers, and I think transformed the experience for people.
If you believe in what you're doing, many people will tell you, why you're mistaken, why it'll never work, but if you really believe passionately in what you're doing, just keep going, keep pushing on, and until you either succeed or at least you realise that it's just not going to happen. And then if you don't succeed, pick yourself up and try again. And ultimately, if you're that determined, you will succeed in life. And if you don't, you'll have a hell of a lot of fun trying.
I started literally in a really small way, like handing out leaflets outside concert halls and selling music, getting the money in from the leaflets and then sending the music out, and just one thing led on to another. So you don't have to dream big straight away. Just try to get the nuts and bolts of your business going.
Well, whatever job you're doing in life, if you're a switchboard operator, if you're cleaning the floors of a building, if you're collecting eggs for an incubator, or whatever it is, if you're positive about the job you're doing, you're going to be a much happier person, and the people around you are going to be a lot happier, and it's likely that that you won't forever be a cleaning lady, or because you're smiling, because you're happy, people will promote you, and you'll go on and do great things in life. So I think a positive attitude is essential in life, whatever your position.
So it looks like you always go out of your comfort zone, right? Coming onto an island that was completely deserted, no fresh water, you didn't even have the money to buy it, and now you're sleeping on a tent on the beach trying to figure out how to get fresh water here. You do that often. You did it with the airline.
I mean, I was just somebody that experienced the bad experience of traveling on airlines. I was actually trying to get to the BVI, the British Virgin Islands, one day from Puerto Rico, and the same lovely lady was waiting for me, and I'd been away for 3 weeks, and American Airlines bumped the flight. And so I went to the back of the airport, I hired a plane, I hired a blackboard, I wrote Virgin Airlines one way, $29 to the BVI, went around all the people who'd been bumped, and I filled my first plane. And that got me thinking, that airlines do bump people. They don't care about you or me, particularly in the air. And so so I then rang up Boeing and said, do you have any second-hand 747s?
No kidding. I mean, it was literally that you just sat in the airport and said, I'm starting an airline right now because I'm frustrated.
Exactly. And I think most of the best entrepreneurial ideas come out of frustration. I think, if you're frustrated about something, the best way of sorting it out is get out and do it, and you've got yourself a business.
Life is short, life should be fun, and it should be fun, not, it should be, if the chairman of the company is having fun, if you go to a party and, if I let my hair down and I'm the first to be thrown in the swimming pool and I'm not just standing in the corner of the room sipping sherry or something, then everybody will have a laugh and everybody will have it fun. If you're chairman of the company, be the first to dance on the table. Just get everybody else up dancing on the table and make sure the party's a laugh. So, so play hard and work hard, and follow certain principles in life. Love people. Make sure you make a positive difference in this world while you're on it.
Key to, I think, being a good business leader is how good you are with people. I think if you can genuinely care about people, and not just your fellow directors, but the cleaning lady, the switchboard operator, everybody throughout the company. If you're a good, if you praise and don't criticize, people will flourish. So I think it's really your people skills that will set you apart. And I don't think that can be overemphasized. I think you just got to, if I'm on a Virgin plane, I will make sure that I always have a notebook in my back pocket. Make sure I get out and talk to all the staff. If they've got issues, make sure I don't just hear the issue and not write it down. Make sure those issues get written down. Talk to the passengers. If they've got issues, make sure those issues get written down.
I honestly just don't think about mistakes, but let me see if I can try. I mean, I just like to, if I make a mistake, I put it behind me and I just move forward. But, yes, I mean, there have been, musical bands that I've missed trying to sign, like Dire Straits. There have been companies that have fallen flat on their face, like Virgin Cola. That's just part of being an entrepreneur. You're going to have these things happening all the time. So I don't really see them as mistakes. They're just, if you're an entrepreneur, that some things are not going to go right, some things are going to go right. I mean, I am dyslexic, and therefore I think I've been very good at keeping things simple, because as a dyslexic, I need things to be simple for myself, and therefore Virgin, I think, when we launch a financial service company or a bank, we do not use jargon. Everything's very clear cut, very simple, and I think people have an affinity to the Virgin brand because we don't talk above them or talk down to them. The most important thing about running a company is to remember all the time what a company is. A company is simply a group of people.
And as a leader of people, you have to be a great listener, you have to be a great motivator, you have to be very good at praising and looking for the best in people. People are no different from flowers. If you water flowers, they flourish. If you praise people, they flourish. And that's a critical attribute of a leader.
And not try to do everything yourself. Try to find people who are better than you all the time. Try to find people who are better than you to put you out of business effectively. So, whatever you're spending all your day doing, try to find someone who's better than you to do that, to replace you at it, so that you can go off and think about the next big picture. An entrepreneur is not a manager. I mean, an entrepreneur is somebody who is great at conceiving ideas, starting ideas, building ideas, but then handing over to really good managers to manage the businesses. The moment you've got more than one business, you can't be hands-on doing everything.
I don't actually think that the stereotype of a business person treading all over people to get to the top, generally speaking, works. I think if you treat people well, people will come back and come back for more. And I think all you have in life is your reputation, and it's a very small world.
I love learning. I've never actually thought I was, starting a company as such. I just saw situations as I travelled in life where I felt I could improve on the way things were being done by other people. So, one of my favourite phrases is "screw it, let's do it," and I've used that phrase a lot of times. And we just love going in and trying to shake up industries and doing it better than it's been done before.
If you want to see 10 amazing rules from Elon Musk, check out the video right there next to me. I think you'll love it. Continue to believe, and I'll see you there.
Innovation comes from questioning the way things have been done before.
Yeah.
And if in the education system you're taught not to do that, that will inhibit entrepreneurship.